Is it on now?
Yes.
Okay, stop it again and start it again. This is a 1966 Harley Davidson Sportster XLH. Start it again. I'm not going to. Okay, this is a 1966 Harley Davidson XLH Sportster. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of this bike and its features, and then I'm going to start it and ride off on it. In the 1950s, English motorcycles were starting to sell big in the United States, and Harley Davidson felt it needed to compete with this market segment, so they came out with a family of bikes in 1952 that were similar to the English bikes in a lot of ways. In some ways, they were actually pretty state of the art. They had the suspension was actually superior to what the English bikes had. This is a full swing arm. This is the same kind they use today. This is the ideal suspension. And this is a period when the English motorcycles had plungers or something called a sprung hub, and neither one was as effective as this. They had the telescopic forks, a fairly compact chassis that handled well. And in 1957, they put a modern engine into it, overhead valve engine, and at that point it was pretty much state-of-the-art technology for 57. And 883 cc's, which is still, Sportster's still around today. If you go out and get the most basic bike, Harley will sell you it's an 883 Sportster just like this. The American motorcycles had the rear brake on the right side traditionally, but when they came out with this family of bikes, they wanted to have a foot shift like the English bikes, and the English tradition was to put the foot shifter on the right and the brake on the left. So Harley Davidson did that with these bikes. So you shift your gears on the right and your brake is on the left. It's reversed for the sake of competing in that market segment. In this one, 1966, the technology really hadn't changed much. They were building them pretty much the same, but it was still this model and the Triumph Bonneville were the fastest thing on the street. They were sort of like the Camaro and Mustang of their era. And this one is set up. The English motorcycles had what I call a bench seat, a long seat for two people, and it actually works pretty well. I like it because I have long legs, so I can sit up kind of high. You can move around a little bit. When I ride with my pet Andrea, she sits all the way at the back, and I sit probably, maybe here. When she's not on it, I move back maybe an inch or two. When I saw these things, I thought this is great because I can sit all the way back, but you can't reach the handlebars if you do that. So I probably sit around, maybe here, something like that. And so anyway, everything on it is pretty original. It's got an SNS Super E modern carburetor that gives you better performance, and it starts better than the original. But if you don't start it right away, it floods. So you have to de-flood it. So that happens about half the time. So we'll probably go through that procedure now. Okay, I'm turning on pulling up the. It looks like a chuck, but it's actually an enricher. It actually squirts more gas into it, so it doesn't just chuck off the air. It squirts in more gas. It's on the SNS Super E. I just pulled on that starter lever. Now I'm turning on the gas tap. I'm going to give it, I guess, 2 or 3 kicks with the throttle closed to get some gas primed into the cylinders. Before I started, I forgot to say this is a 1928 Indian behind it, and I already did a video about starting this one. It works fine. Because of all the strangeness about the controls I was talking about, all of the controls are different between these two bikes, except the front brake being on the right lever is the only thing in common. The throttle's on the other side, shifter's different, brakes on the, everything's different. So, but I find I get used to it. I sit in the seat, and I guess my body just kind of programs me, okay, this is the one I'm in today. I don't seem to get crossed up between them. Okay, we'll see if it starts. easily. And if it doesn't start, then you have to kick it a couple times. The SNS floods very easily. So at that point, I have to open the throttle all the way, kick it through 8 times, clear out the gas, then restart it. But it starts pretty easily.